possible partnership between the two countries, specifically when we talk about the Indian railway sector. We are confident and we are sure, and we will ensure that the Canadian companies are able to understand the dynamics when it comes to the Indian railway sector and can possibly look at various partners across the various domains of Indian railway sector and build partnerships. So without any further ado, I will hand over the baton to the session moderator, Mr. Jagan Narayan Padmanabhan, to take forward the discussion from here.
Thank you. Thanks, Komal, for that introduction. I'm happy to be here as part of the FICCI, Railways Conclave, Smart Railways Conclave. We have an extremely electrifying panel out here who combined probably will have more than 200 years of experience in terms of in the core railways part of it. Looking forward to an enriching session. Let me quickly go around and call out and make a small introduction, completely not doing justice to what they would have done as part of it, but within the given time limits, I'll just quickly do. We have Mr. Louis Guy, who's the Vice President of Sales and Business Development, EMEA for Loop Energy, Inc. We have Mr. Raman Wali, Business Alliances Director, Willow Glen Systems, Inc. Maybe a show of hands will help people to know who I'm addressing. Yeah, hi, that's Raman Wali. Mrs. Ashish Singh, Vice President and Railways, AEC International. We have Mr. Pradeep Vasudev, Director of International Rail Projects, WSP. And we have Mr. BK Arora, General Manager, Afcons International Limited. Great. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have all of you out here. And this is a discussion where it is centered towards India and Canada. It's a collaboration between the Indian Railways and what we're looking at in terms of technology, in terms of what are the new things that is going to be coming across. So I'll probably start off with Mr. Louis Guy in terms of what are the ways in which we're talking about EV, we're talking about hydrogen, we're talking about fuel, all of it, which are there. So let me just start off in terms of the concept of hydrogen and the fuel cell, which is there. What are some of the important factors that you're looking at when you're choosing a hydrogen fuel kind of supplier part of it, and from the technology perspective, and then we can move ahead into the other parts of locomotive and other aspects. Yeah.
This is a good question. I think the key point for the fuel cell selection, in particular for all mobility applications, are basically free. Hydrogen is not free as a source of energy. Hydrogen is quite expensive so far. It is expected to decrease in terms of price in coming future, but it is still more expensive to make electricity out of hydrogen than out of hydro. Unfortunately, hydro is not available on mobility applications, so we have to select hydrogen. With that selection, it is important, but very relevant also, not important, probably key, that the capability of the fuel cell to transform hydrogen in electricity is the best that can be achieved with the current state of technology. Because for what is important for the end user is to get the best cost of ownership for whatever is the vehicle, train or bus or truck. So efficiency is key, and efficiency is very important for the success or even the feasibility of projects. The second point is definitely the durability. This device is taking hydrogen on one side and is making available electric power, electricity on the other side. The efficiency is good, but also this device is not cheap. These devices are quite costly. Cost is expected to decrease in the next coming years, but they are not free. So it is good to know that we have selected a technology that is allowing us to make the best efficiency in terms of transformation of hydrogen into electricity and the long lasting of the fuel cell during the period of work. Third things important, I think, is by the end of the use of this device, the recyclability. So how much is recyclable about those devices. With respect of the lithium battery, the fuel cell, our fuel cell has been designed to be almost completely recyclable or refurbished in the time being. So high efficiency, durability, and lower impact on the environment.
Sure. Sure. Excellent, great. So I think if we went into a pretty technical part of it to kickstart, I'll just zoom back and kind of give a picture on what's the Indian Railways part and what are they doing for the wider audience, and then take on Mr. Ashish Singh in this conversation. So if you see what Indian Railways has done in terms of investments, in the last 3 years or so, they have pumped in close to about 4 trillion rupees in the overall investments, and much of it has gone into locomotives in terms of track development, the coverage, which is from the security perspective, and you have been a very key integral part as firm in participating in these projects and making those come through. So I want to kind of quickly latch on to your expertise there and understand what are the kind of what changes which has happened. In railways is a 100 years plus institution. So what are the kind of new technology that they are harping on getting onto board? And from a firm's experience, you can then dwell much more on what's happening. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. You see, the railway, the emphasis of the infrastructure development is definitely in the railway segment. There is always a huge augmentation in terms of capital for the railway developments, whether it is multi-tracking, new lines, bullet trains, DFCC, and everything. But at the same time, railway is also working for increasing the speed. So the conventional speed, which was defined as a trunk route, Delhi to Mumbai, Delhi Howrah, they were operating at 160. Now it is going to 200 kilometers per hour. Various semi-high-speed railways are also planned, and they're under the development. The bullet train, one single project is already there. So from the perspective of just augmenting the capacity, the technological part is also opening up. Because as the speed is increasing, the safety will become important. And because of the safety, the additional safety, which is indigenous developed as defined as a Kavach, is also coming in addition to the various safety segment, which is we call as a electronic interlocking. But at the same time, there is a allocation of LTE, which is for the captive use as of now. But the use of LTE has a multiple folds. So probably this can be an opportunity where a lot of new things will be coming up for to provide the facility to the passenger. At the same time, the railway is also thinking from the conventional maintenance system to going for the predictive maintenance, where the our SCADA system and all those things will be coming up. The Wabtec is already in India. They are working on the braking system of a running locomotive. There is also track system, OHE system, and the signaling system is also going to be on the predictive maintenance. This is a thought process, and a lot of allocation, budgetary allocation is already here in terms of Kavach, which is initially for Delhi Howrah, but now the Golden Quadrilateral, HUN, high density routes are also classified for developing this system. So there is a huge opportunity, not only in terms of developing the wagons, because the new capacities are getting created, new locos or rolling stocks will be required. At the same time, maintenance is there, the technological improvement is there. So it is a lot of new things are coming up. Already there is a national railway plan is there in place, 2050. So with a lot of investment, I think the data we can share with the audience are generally aware. So opportunity is immense, and there is all possibilities of taking the new technologies or the things to India for the Indian Railways.
Excellent.
Only rider is that the Make in India concept is also at the same time is applicable. We have to deal with this. I don't know, because there are certain areas where the things are already working. So bringing the things, probably you may need a partner here who can, or we can work on that also. Thank you, Jacob.
No, sure, absolutely. I think it has to be a marrying of partnership between Canada, India, or any other nation who have the technology and how that can be transferred out here and make it more accommodative to the Indian environment, right? I think that's where the partnership will come in. I'll move to Mr. Pradeep and then probably to Ramin post that. Pradeep, when we are looking about technology, it also means that we need to be future ready, right? That's the important theme that we want to be there. And in the prep up to this call, you kind of really talked about saying that railways is not a new thing to India, right? So we've been there for probably 100+ years, done a lot of stuff. There's deep-rooted knowledge of how to run a railway, challenges, issues, all of it, right? So I think it will be pertinent to note that from the audience perspective also, this is not a new industry that we are looking at. So you have to be marry both of what is conventional, what is future, and bring that together. And then how do you get the customer experience to be a lot better, and the value part of it. And digitization is one aspect that needs to be looked at in that context. So what are the aspects that you think where this is going to be having a lot of impact, and what are the things that the Indian stakeholders, customers, the authorities, everybody can look forward to? You can enumerate on that. Yeah.
Thank you. And as you say, exactly, technology is the infusion of technology into the railways is actually the part of the future. And as Mr. Ashish Singh has also said, you know, the challenges of implementing new technologies in digital signaling, new technologies in telecoms, etc., provide you with a lot more capability from an operation standpoint. And that means that the railways, not only are they able to accommodate higher speed operation, they're also able to accommodate closer running trains. We're also able to respond to issues on a railway and recover a service a lot quicker. So they provide a lot of capability that, whilst we have them today, they become a lot more automated, and at that point, the operator and the ability of the operator to use these in an optimum way becomes even more important. And it's also very important to understand that just because capability exists, we shouldn't just implement it. We need to be very focused on implementing technology and capability that has purpose and will provide something for the future. But one of the things about the implementation of technology in all these different areas, signaling, telecoms, passenger information, connectivity, for example, on Wi-Fi, etc., it brings in a complexity in the delivery aspect of the railway. So it's not just the operations, but the delivery. Where we would traditionally have delivered a railway and know how to do it for years, the added complexity of connectivity of all the systems and how they interact is something that we learn as we go along. And that complexity adds time to the delivery. And it's very difficult to anticipate how long it will take to integrate these software systems to provide very homologated GUI, or the operator interface. And the last thing I would say about all of this is that from a future-ready standpoint, connectivity of railways to the wider, wider city infrastructure, but both multimodal, so making sure that we have some ways taking advantage of connectivity between, say, aviation and railways, or ground transport, etc. but also other systems within the cities. Because as we go to places like smart cities, we have so much information that we're able to manage connectivity of people and their movement all the way to from point to point. So I think a lot of capability in Future Ready, a lot there. We need to look for step change. To do step change, you need to have a vision for what the future will look like rather than start from where we are. And these are really areas where a lot of us that have worked in other industries and in other countries are able to bring some of that learning so that we can make that step change as quickly as possible.
No, absolutely. I agree with you in context of cross-pollination. And you kind of rightly mentioned it's just not trial-based, but cross-industry experiences that could come through and dovetail and how to make this a lot more. And India, as they say, has multiple countries within the same country, right? So there's so much to learn and experience across the whole length and breadth of the country. And more variety that is brought onto the table, there's a lot more learning. Getting in Raman specifically on taking this further into the whole digitization part. How do you, the whole value chain that if you were to look at it, new technology, automation, digitization, the whole artificial intelligence part of it. So many of these terminologies are now being faced, and for a company like you who specializes in this and the systems which are there, what are the kind of learnings that we could get on things that you would have done outside of India, and also probably what are you planning for India and how the collaboration can come through? Happy to hear your views.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for setting up this panel discussion. I think I personally learned a lot from this discussion since early morning, my time zone. One thing I really learned during this event was the entire plan is a journey. It's not that we plan and we start or we stop at some point. So you are absolutely right. When we talk about the digitization and then digitalization, and now we are talking about the digital transformation, and a lot of companies are talking about the digital twins. Basically, this is all the journey that the companies are moving forward. So what I learned today was that India has a very good infrastructure and very good settled, let's say, transportation system. But now it is a time to move to the next level. And that next level is part of the digital transformation and digital twins. So we can benefit from them. Mr. Ashish talked about the proactive maintenance or predictive maintenance. And now we are talking about the next level, like preventive maintenance, or let's say data correction or data like error detection and correction in the railroad systems, part of the artificial intelligence algorithms. So definitely there are so many improvements, so many things that can be done. At Videogland Systems, we are a SCADA company. We call our product SentinQ as a super SCADA. Basically, we can integrate so many subsystems together, and that's a very good scalable system. We have some install base in Canada, in China, in some other part of the world. For example, we brought the CCTV system into the operator's station, and usually CCTVs have their own, let's say, alarm management software. And then we can integrate it to the original alarm management by the operator. So we eliminate some of those additional steps if some alarm is going on in the CCTV system versus the operator's station. So they can integrate all these together. And these are all part of the digital transformation steps. And again, I learned a lot today about the tier 2, tier 3 investments for the metro rail, let's say LRTs or light rails. And even some of the low-cost solutions by eliminating the heavy, let's say, huge stations, for example. So nowadays, there are so many types of smart sensors available in the market with very small footprints, very low energy consumption, and all those points can be integrated to the SCADA system or a master DCS system. And from there, they can do a lot of monitoring, control. And when Mr. Ashish talked about the end-to-end points, like this is definitely a goal for all the transportation systems. We need to share a lot of data between different infrastructures. Let's say public transport share data with the metro rail system, for example. And now I see a lot of startup companies are doing that, like they connect the metro information with the let's say taxi companies, so that people can predict, okay, now is the time that the metro rail is reaching to this station. And these type of infrastructures are also available through the SCADA systems. So definitely we are in a very right place. We need to have a master plan. Like I'm pretty sure the discussions like this are definitely results to some sort of the master plan for the next 20, 25, 30 years. And open system, scalable system can be a very good fit for that type of requirements.
Excellent. I think very valid points that you've brought across. So digitization is just not specific to Indian Railways or a particular mode of transport. It has to really integrate into the other modes as well. And that's where the beauty of technology can be really leveraged and being experienced by people. So very, very valid points that's there. I'd like to get Mr. Arora in the context of Afcons being leading, contractors for PPC player, having executed multiple challenging engagements India and outside of India in railways and other sectors as well. What are the nuances that you would think that, Mr. Arora, that the companies, let's say, who are looking at making investments or trying to foray into India, they should be looking at, and what are the kind of partnerships that could be extended by Indian firms to make this a lot more meaningful and worthwhile their effort to come through? And what do you think is the total kind of opportunity that is available out here? Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Jagan. Of course, before I get into the opportunities, I would just like to take some time to explain Afcon's association with Indian Railways, and that would give some idea to our continuous effort to be taking up jobs of technically challenging situations. Afcons, incidentally, is a originally Swiss company which specialized in soil and foundation engineering that commenced its operation some 62 years. So I take 62 years of 200 years experience from the group. And that time it was called Rodeo and Hazrat. We were carrying out heavy foundation and diaphragm wall work and soil engineering activities, etc. And considering heavy foundation and soil engineering involvement in technically challenging projects, our association with ports and railways was natural. And this is some 5 decades old now. And this would be evident from some of the railway project I would like to share here, like Southeastern Railways, when it was executing a 164 kilometer single track broad gauge connecting Koraput to Raigada in Odisha state in year 1988. Alignment was going through hilly area and number of tunnels were foreseen. Work was being executed with typical heading and benching, adopting conventional method of tunneling. Suddenly, soil started failing in the already constructed tunnel by another contractor. At the same time, Afcons was awarded one of the tunnel project to construct in these failing soil condition, and accordingly, we did another soil investigation afresh, and solution was found by complete sides of the tunnel grouted beforehand, and that facilitated tunnel requirement of that alignment. Eastern Railways was constructing Calcutta Metro between Dum Dum and Tollygunge, a length of 16 kilometers, needed to construct an underpass that would be running under 6 existing railway track without disrupting railway traffic. Incidentally, railway always remained lifeline of the country, and stopping its traffic is something unimaginable. They talk in terms of 2 hours and 4 hours. You will get a break within which you have to work. So to meet this requirement and working under populated area with soft soil condition, first time indigenously developed blade shield technique to form support system of tunneling was used. This was incidentally first time also in the country. Similarly, Honover Tunnel of Konkan Railway, a railway line between Roha and Mangalore, was executed by blade shield tunneling method. This whole technology was developed locally. Thane Creek Bridge, it was 1.872 kilometer bridge constructed or awarded to us in 1986 by CITCO. This also
Sure.
had soft ground approaches and
Right.
marine clay, and that was improved by sand piles and sand drains.
Yeah, Mr. Arun, I think fair enough. We understand the expertise that Afcons brings to the table. I think what would be kind of pertinent to the audience is because of the nature is the Canada-India part of partnership. So I was just wondering for any of the Canadian companies to be looking into coming into India, what would be, or if it can be taken up by Ashish also, it's fine. In terms of the value add that they would be getting in having a partner in getting it across within India in terms of understanding the local geography, the nuances part of it, and what's the value add that they could see, or are we saying that they could directly come and set up shop, work independently for the country contracts that are coming up in India? So just a bit of a flavor where they could be looking and working independently. There are many of, let's say, in the IT services field, many of them have come and set up their own shop and been able to progress. But I've not seen many success stories. Even the kinds of Alstom and others have taken their own time to come here and set up the shop and needed that collaboration with India. So throwing light there would be really helpful.
Yes, in fact, we consider Indian Railways as a mammoth organization. Of course, it is a huge organization by itself. But apart from Indian Railways, we have number of other organizations which are also executing projects, which include Indian Vikas Nigam, IRCON, RITES, DFCC, individual metro joint venture or metro companies, and NCRTC, etc. So they are all independent entities and they are independently executing projects, and their functionings are different and their requirements are different. Like for metro construction, you have to work in urban area with restricted construction area, and as well as this urban traffic and underground utilities which are running. And within these limiting areas, you have to execute project in a very tight time schedule. Since of late now, metros have seen that works of 10 kilometers can be done in a matter of 36 months or 24 months. And that involves number of agencies like utility agencies, which are altogether different, not really concerned with the metro directly, and you have to work through those agencies and execute the project.
Understood. So what you're saying is that there'll be a lot of synergy. If an Indian partner is involved in trying to get and execute the engagements which would be there, and hence a lot more value add can be brought in partnership with an Indian firm who have worked in such areas. Understood. I get that context. I think for any of the Canadian firm to be looking at coming in and doing EPC related works, all of that, I think the initial one would be, as Mr. Arora is saying, that to have a partnership with an Indian firm, get to know the nuances of how to work, and then take this forward. I want to move ahead and involve Pradeep in context of this whole investments partnership and all of that. So Railways is in one way, really looking forward for a PPP kind of a mode of execution of things, right? We've seen quite a few of this happening in the road sector, in the Indian context, so to say. Much of it has got achieved, but similar is the expectation by the government that a fair amount of public-private partnership needs to happen in the railways as well. And we have been aspiring to be there. Honestly, there's still a lot to go in terms of getting the private sector on board. Where are the areas you think there this public-private partnership can really work well, and what's in it for Indian Railways when you have this kind of a partnership going through? Any of the new engagements part of it, please feel free to add.
Yeah, thank you. So we've supported PPP type arrangements around the world on a number of projects, and of course PPP you could go all the way from complete concession, which allows complete whole life cycle, including maintenance and operations. But I guess in essence, we need to look at PPP in the kind of context of the project and why are we doing it. So what is the need that the PPP solution is trying to resolve? Generally speaking, it's an infusion of funds. So for example, in the privatization in the UK, what's worked really well is the rolling stock procurement area, where a significant amount of old rolling stock was replaced very quickly using private funds with long-term maintenance arrangements. So there's some attraction for the maintenance for the investor to deal with to not only provide the asset, but to have some long-term association with the asset and a return. The issue with PPPs generally is around the interface of whether or not the perceived risks from the investor are manageable. And so things like rolling stock or some asset-based PPP allows them to put a kind of fence around it and to manage that. It is important that there's some attractiveness from a investor standpoint to make sure that quality is given. And of course, clearly from a procurement standpoint, you need to make sure you know why you're trying to achieve it so that we can make sure we achieve that. Most PPPs will have a long-term arrangement for the repayment of whatever financing's been put forward. So the thing that's also worth noting is that the arrangements of the long-term association, for example, associated with maintenance or operation, foresees the future and the change of the use of the asset and provides some way of changing the arrangement or the enhancing the asset to respond to the changing needs over that period. So there's a significant amount of thinking that's needed to be done around the PPP to make it relevant for the whole life of that concession. It's interesting. It works in a lot of places. There have been failures in places as well, and those in themselves doesn't mean it's a no-go area. But there are lessons to be learned from where things have been done well or not so well. And these should be infused into the thinking of how we move forward using PPP within India.
Oh, excellent point. I think that there is a lot to learn there. And Mr. Singh, please.
Yeah. Thanks, Pradeep. Actually, since we as a KEC, we are also one of the infrastructure companies. So we are practically, we are into practically all aspects, doing around 1,200 of a track. More than 40% of railway electrification is done by KEC. More than 80% of 2025 electrification, we are there for increasing the speed and the viaduct and 55 kilometers. So what I have felt that these are the area where you are mostly talking about the station, the rolling stock, locomotives, where there is a certain things are fixed. At the same time, there are also area where the capacity augmentation work, as the DFCC is planning for the capacity augmentation, but it is not taking place because there are still there are the challenges with respect to revenue. Because it was annuity, now it is because of the traffic base. So nobody knows how does it moves. What is the study was done by the World Bank and on what basis it would be actually operating. So there are certain risk area. But at the same time, since we have invested a lot of things into creating the capacity, probably the another area where we can see is maintenance of the asset. Probably we can start with a slightly safer area because maintenance also require a lot of interface with the train operations. And to initially start with the maybe the track kind of thing will be difficult because the corridors has to be defined and all those things. But since most of the electrification is done recently, in last 4 or 5 years. And this is the area where around we can think that this capacity created by the private can be utilized in the operations of, say, we can define the geography 500 kilometers or something. So this could be another area. Train operation and all those things which are generally talked by the internet, we can definitely think the pros and cons, how it has been implemented on the certain part, how it was successful. But probably this is the other which I'm thinking from the EPC contractor point of view. And probably there we can, since the lot of things are coming from the technology digitalization, where the predictive maintenance and the curative and all those things which we are talking, this can be the point of developing the technology as well as engaging the private into these areas of operations. Your view can be welcome.
Yeah. I just suggest that I think that's excellent point, Ashish, because in the maintenance area, one of the things that I think is important, I think, Ramin's area of providing the information, when you go to PPP type procurement, if you do something from an output-based requirement and a service provision, you have people that are competent in knowing what they do and they're focused on delivering the outputs. They will focus on having the right information to inform themselves to provide that feedback. And it allows client organizations to focus on what they're really good at and then allow an organization that comes in as a PPP to provide the service that they're very good at. And that together makes the system a step change in performance of the system.
Great. Thanks, Pradeep. Wanted to get Mr. Luigi on a specific point, and when we're talking about this whole locomotive technology transformation, all of this part of it, and one of the ones that India has been, there are multiple fuel systems that we have been looking at, and one of it is the locomotives has been on the diesel part of it. We continue to have them here. But what are the challenges that you see if in the future aspects when the locomotives are going to move from, let's say, diesel to other modes and specifically to the hydrogen or the electric part of it? What are the kind of challenges that you see that could come through that should be kept in mind? Yeah.
Really, the things that is good with this kind of transformation and that is need to be very carefully evaluated is the balance of the system as designed between a fuel cell that is providing power on demand versus a battery that is managing the transition of the energy required by the locomotive. Being that, considering that the good point for that is the weight of the batteries may be not that important as in, for instance, buses and trucks. But on the other side, considering that, and this is a good point because the battery can manage the transition time of the request of energy that is coming through, the key balance is to go for an optimization of the use, so with a pretty large battery or quite large battery, versus a different kind of approach that try to tend to minimize the use of the battery in order to improve the size of the fuel cell, getting the fuel cell able to manage the peaks. These two different approaches are key because they are depending on, they can be very different from the one or the other, can be very different when you go to the cost of ownership, because definitely the impact of the battery is weight. That maybe is not that important, some cost at the beginning, but then you have the best efficiency in terms of fuel transformation. The second solution, we provide both the solution, but the second solution, which we don't really think is that good for trains, but this is depending, we need to sit down with the people that are making the integration and the calculation from the expected cost is to have the fuel cell more demand, more let's say more tuned to follow the needs of the train rather than providing the average energy. So these two decisions are very different and can deserve two different economic behavior and expectations. So this is not really that technology, it is a technology difference, but the impact of this technology difference is in the expected revenues and the expected cost and the expected maintenance that you have on the locomotive. So this is very, very critical.
Sorry, yeah, fair point to have this right. And in terms of moving ahead, Mr. Ramin, would you be kind of looking at some of the case studies that we could look at, right? In terms of this whole technology digitization, what's the benefit that comes across multiple stakeholders, and where you would have experienced this? Could you take us through some of the international experiences that you would have put across, and so that we know and expect what could be the kind of benefit that comes across? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Vinogalen has multiple projects all over the world, and I would refer to one in China, which is one of the biggest installations, and the other one in Canada, which is a very complex architecture. So between these two systems, these two architectures, basically what our SCADA system is doing is trying to connect all different islands. Let's say we have CCTVs, management system, electrical systems, all of them has to be connected to the main center as a SCADA system, and a decision has to be made based on all the information. In one last instance I had in Ottawa, for example, they want to change the speed of elevators based on the time. So if we have the trains moving from this direction, then the elevators have to change the direction. But these type of benefits basically are achievable through the integrated system. Now, there are so many challenges, as we talked about the challenges, these are the practical challenges, are the protocols. Different islands, different systems have different protocols. Some of them are proprietary of the company, and a super SCADA type system is required to bring all those points together, analyze the situation. And we also have an open server so that we can run some of these artificial intelligence algorithms on them. So basically, these are some of the experiences we have. We can save energy based on the, let's say, energy peak time, some of the timing, some of the scheduling. And when we talk about the end-to-end solutions, then we need to also consider sharing the data with the other systems. Now, we also talked about what we can offer, what we can bring to the table when we talk about the Indian market. Basically, what I learned again today was there are so many intelligence there. There are so many companies are doing the system integration, software development, and when it comes to the projects in India, we definitely recommend having a local presence. So we are not a big company to join as a PPP or finance a part of the project, but we can definitely support the local integrators by offering them our software licenses. Even I think practically we should not sell our license. We should have some sort of exclusive agreement with the local system integrator so that the system integrators use our license for multiple projects in one region. And this know-how knowledge has to be transferred locally, because definitely time zone, being competitive, and definitely the resources, great resources available in India to be able to deploy that technology and use it in their project. So I took the advantage of your question to tell what we can do, what we can offer, but we did the same practice in China. We did the same practice in Saudi Arabia, for example. We have a local presence, and local system integrators takes care of all the maintenance and supports. And in Canada, we definitely have local presence in different areas.
Right. Thanks. That's really great to know. Just want to get in Mr. Ashish Singh back on the conversation. So we've talked about railways and specifically looking at more on the passenger part of it and the user experience and all of that. Two other aspects where I think we should be also having a view is on the freight side part of it, and also looking at for the metro, right? And so are these these are in a way chalk and cheese, but what has been your experience in working across in the freight part of it and also on the metro side, and what are the key learnings that's there, and what are the kind of opportunities that does exist for the firms like them who want to come into this part of it? Yeah.
I will start with the metro first, because we are into the creation of a viaduct or the creation of a civil asset, stations and the viaduct. We are also into the technological part of the system part, where the ballastless track, your signaling system, the electrification, everything is there. So what I say that the system which is operating now for the metro segment, system packages, they are now for around 20 years old. The ballastless track is still in situ. The quality issues are started coming up. The metro system is actually increasing the speed because of the RRTS and the many important projects. Probably since it is a lot of been talked about regional connectivity and all those things, probably the technology needs to change here. It should have the economical, should be economical, have a large costing, the quality issues which is being faced with the current system of in-situ construction, the timeline, and all those things can be eliminated because of the precast. We think that if you can bring certain technology in terms of this as a ballastless system, number one. Number two, the fastening system. There are various companies which are already existing, but probably this is the area where something new can come up. As far as the signaling is concerned, since it is dominated by mostly EI system or ATP1 kind of system, but because of the RRTS, some new advancement has started coming up, which we call as a ETCS level 2 kind of system, has been first time being integrated into the metro system. So getting future ready kind of a metro, we need to bring new technologies, because these are actually something which is initially India has started, but there is a time to think for change now. As far as the freight is concerned, since we are purely into the contracting firm, we are not into the creation of a rolling stock. But since because of creation of a lot of new assets, there is already a program which is budget has been sanctioned or something. We can talk that there is already a news that around 34,000 crores of rupees is being pumped for purchasing the rolling stock, especially for created new asset. And there are lots of logistic parks are coming up, because this is again coming, most of the DFCC corridors are coming along the industrial corridor, where the logistic parks will be created, loading, unloading, the technological part, integration of all those things with there to save the time and all those things. The operation is actually has a lot of immense potential for bringing the technology into the freight part, because today India is challenged only because of the time which it takes from carrying the goods from one place to another place. And second is the traceability of it. So with the new corridors being ready and the other corridors are still planned, so whatever the model that will be setting here for this first corridor will be should be the ideal model, or what we call the smart city we are describing as corridor could be. We can say that probably those should come as a smart model project, which can be a example for other upcoming projects which can be planned. So, Jagan, I will not be able to comment much on this, but I can understand the requirement, that how the immense requirement is there for the rolling stock. Technological part, operation is the most important part of the freight, because the most of the revenue from the Indian Railway comes from the operation. So time cycle, create utilization of asset, and all those things will bring into the revenue to the Indian Railways.
Excellent, great. Just want to flip back to Pradeep in terms of new modes of doing this whole PPP part. We also kind of talked about something as output-based maintenance, right, of the whole PPP. So is that something which you are going to be actively looking at, and instead something which is India could be looking at, because this is not even in terms of other sectors, this is quite new, right? So for that, I think the private sector can add a lot of value when it is going to be measurable, and then the rewards are commensurate with the kind of the output which is coming across. So any experiences that you can share and which could be acting as a lead for the Indian Railways to take that on board in many of the future contracts that they come back on.
Thank you, Jagan. Yeah, I could add a little bit. I could give you a little bit around some of our experience around the world that relates to this kind of thing. So, for example, in London Underground, they had a brownfield PPP where they backfitted an infrastructure company to take over the assets and provide a service provision for London Underground to run. And we were there managing the delivery of a number of projects that were part of the output of the PPP. So there was a output-based PPP, which was very clear about what was expected to be delivered in terms of capacity, in terms of daily service provision, availability, etc. And what I found personally, because I was involved in it, that was very useful from a delivery side was clarity of what was important from the buying client organization. And they built a very interesting model that allowed us to make cost-benefit analysis of providing certain services or functions, understanding what benefit we would get for providing that service. And it was done in a pseudo-automated way, in that there was a model that allowed us to make these judgments. And then there was an adjudication, if you will, before you made the investment decision. So I use that as an example only to say that the clarity of what we're doing and why we're doing it is extremely important for all parties involved in a PPP. And from our standpoint, we provide services for the whole life cycle, which includes design, includes delivery management and program management, etc., all the way through to support during maintenance. And it's important to understand where these costs are, because one of the things in the PPP side of things, clearly as in any infrastructure project, CapEx is quite big, but actually it's the long-term operations and maintenance where the cost is. And so understanding that whole life cycle and affecting a reduction in maintenance and operation by optimizing design in that respect is always important. And as we've heard from Ramin and Ashish, there's quite a lot of technology that we can infuse to inform the operations and maintenance and optimize that. Now, what's interesting is that in a new build railway, about 85% of the investment, generally 80 to 85, is the civils aspect. The remaining 15 to 20% is the systems aspect. But if you think about it from an asset standpoint, the purpose is a railway and the output is important. That 15 to 20% of the investment is in fact 90+% of the return. And it's extremely important that we optimize our designs and how we manage and make sure that we get our output based on that. So it is all about that future systems that allows us and enables. So I think this is about client being understanding, actually all players understanding why we're doing it, and then experts knowing what they're doing to optimize and deliver that output. We're able to assist that.
No, clearly. So you're saying that it's the key that it's so critical, right? In terms of cost, it could be very minimal, but the implications that it has across the entire value chain, and hence, if you want to get better value for the 80% of the money that you are going to spend, you better concentrate on the 10-15% of the money that you're going to be putting in out here, so that you get the best value for the entire product as such. So just want to quickly go through in kind of any specific remarks that you would want to make. Anybody happy to take that on board? Mr. Arora, any specific aspects in kind of Afcons and or in particular for the India-Canada kind of a collaboration part you want to develop on, feel free to make your remarks, and probably we could go across in making closing remarks on this particular topic. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, of course, government, I mean, railways is looking forward to invest heavily on modernization and future railway projects. And they are experimenting with different kind of PPP and private partnership model, particularly in the stations. In this regard, Indian roads have been doing projects on PPP, BOT. In fact, they have come up with a new term called HAM, in which our company or our group has done some road projects. Incidentally, that is only a what do you call hybrid annuity model, under which in a annuity you are assured of payment in a particular period. In hybrid annuity, part of the investment is by government, and that is accordingly project is made viable. So there are a number of methods being adopted by Indian roads, particularly to privatize the assets. In railways, we have yet to see how things evolve, and they do talk about Canadian pension fund, etc. also, but we are still waiting how things evolve in the coming years. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Luigi, any closing remarks from your side?
In particular, but I think the Pradeep identified really clearly the fact that it's not the big amount of money that is making a project successful, is that you have to care about the critical part of the project that are making or good use or bad use of the big amount of money. And really, I think is really very valuable, because most of the people are under-evaluating these criticalities, and the results are sometimes not that good.
Excellent, great. So you're saying look at what's the important one and concentrate there, so that the whole gets benefited from that, viewing it from the criticality part of it. Great. Should we move to Mr. Ramin? Any closing remarks from your side?
That's it.
No, I think we are good. Just I want to look at from the passenger perspective as well, because I think the passenger's experience is also important in this discussion.
Yeah.
Yep. it's very important, the passengers' experience. They expect us to do some, let's say, safety scheduling and some of those basic features which are already there. And then now they are asking for the next level of the comfort, let's say easy to access or connectivity, IoT, some of those convenience and hygiene they expect. So that's the place, that's the right place to discuss about the journey. And I hope this type of events can help sharing the knowledge and improving the situation.
Yeah, I think we did touch upon it in saying that the whole technology, moves beyond the one mode of transport. So it goes multiple parts of it, and then it's just not the passenger in the railways part of it, and how the whole hand holding into the whole mobility part. So from the time he starts from his home to his destination, that experience has to be there, and the interchange also has to be there, and it needs to be real time in its presence. So I think, yeah, very valid point in terms of the passenger experience is also very important. And if you're able to drive that in a very value-based part of it, I think for a market like India, the scope is immense. So if you're able to effectively deliver, so I'll take a quick, maybe a bit of a detour and talk about it in a banking perspective, so that the audience can appreciate. The digitalization which has happened in the banking sector for India is unprecedented. In the last couple of years, today every kind of payment, starting from 10 rupees, which is like 1/7 of a dollar, upwards, everything is done through the digital way. So even small things that we buy, fruits, vegetables, everything is digital. The point I'm saying is that if you're able to get that digitization, and if you're able to deliver it at a very cost-effective manner, the market is very, very huge. So we are 1.3 billion people, and hence there's great stuff that can be exploited, and surely railways is one of the areas that can be done, because it's a touch point for billions of people in India. It's the lifeline of the country, and that's how they move across, and hence this will be a very good point. Mr. Ashish, over to you for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Jagan. I think discuss, and they are very relevant to the future rail transportation system. The integration we have already discussed. The budget is already there. The plan is already there for the Gati Shakti, where a lot of all the transportation mode will be integrated together, and the technology or the digitalization will again come. And Jagan has pointed out very right thing. The banking was probably one of the best example of digitalization, where the Indian banks actually opposed for it, because how it will be difficult, how the money will be, accountability will be first fixed, and all those things. But it's still actually getting implemented very well. So there may be resistance, probably how it can be done, how it cannot be done, but everything is possible. It is actually going to be the digitalization, because as Pradeep has rightly mentioned, that whatever the asset that we are creating is a fixed asset. But over and above that, the system is actually get deteriorated during the operations, and the energy for the digitalization and all the revenue operation, all the consent, all the access which is actually getting are actually happening because of the faults in the system. So I think we should pay attention to create a good quality of asset. Maybe the digitalization may again come to that place also, and then operation and the operation maintenance and the operation is definitely be the area where we can do a lot of things. There is immense potential. The budget is there, allocation is there. Probably we can say that the will is there to make all those changes. It is actually the things, as Pradeep has initially started, to get it implemented in a proper way, that will actually take us to the next level.
Excellent. So Pradeep, over to you. Final remarks on this. Yeah.
Thank you, Jagan. This has been quite enjoyable, and I think I'll latch on to Ramin's point about customer experience as being something that's a good way to kind of end this. is that I've mentioned output-based quite a lot. The ultimate output of what we're doing and why we're doing it is the customer. A significant part of the railway project in terms of where we're heading for the future is about brownfield projects. It's about transforming the current network to something in the future. And what's important from a customer experience standpoint is that this transformation is totally transparent. And the experience is improved, but it doesn't disrupt operation of railway, or it minimizes as such. Even what Luigi talks about, alternate things like hydrogen cells, etc. Instead of electrifying, maybe you go from diesel to hydrogen cells, for example. The infrastructure cost and the disruption in certain areas is minimized. So there's a lot of things that we can do from what is being talked about here that can improve the customer experience and do it in a way that transforms the railway to something that is, I suppose, more world-class than it is today. Because I'll tell you, I grew up in India, and the Indian Railways is absolutely my passion. I've loved it all along, and I will always love it. And I'd love to see it transform into something even better.
No, absolutely. We all love Indian Railways. And I hail from a place which is Mumbai, where we transport many countries every day from one location to the other. The sheer numbers will baffle many people across the world. So it's not a joke of what they are trying to do with the constraints that have been imposed on them. Hats off to the people who are doing it. It's a extremely strenuous job. We are every day thankful to what they bring to the table. So I think I'll just sum it up in kind of closing this. Quite an enriching discussion. We talked about the whole PPP, the whole opportunity, either on the infra part of it or the output-based maintenance part of it. And that's a new thing that we kind of heard it. What is the kind of benefit that it offers, operating from a lever of the 15% of the cost, how can be really beneficial for the overall project of the 100%. And these are large-scale projects. We are not talking about a few $million. It runs into billions of rupees, and hence this does really make sense if you have to make those kind of investments and make them work productively. We talked about from Luigi from the hydrogen part of it and how the impact that it can have. We talked about new technology. We talked about the partnership which Mr. Arora talked about between India and Canada and how the firms can collaborate and bring across. We talked about digitization. Ramin was kind enough to talk about their experience in Canada, China, and other places, how these whole of it can come across. Mr. Ashish Singh talked about their experience, Casey's experience in the metro, in the passenger and the overall locomotive and other aspects, including the coverage, the security part of it and everything. So I think we kind of have deliberated multiple facets of the Indian Railways. No one particular discussion can really do justice in kind of covering all of it. We've tried our best to do all of that. So a big thank you to all the panelists, the participants, and kind of now hand it over to Komal to conclude the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. A lot has been said, and I wish the Canadian companies all the best, and any help that you would require, as FICCI has given full support to the High Commission as well. Any support that you would expect or want from us, we'll be more than happy to connect you to the right people who can help you develop and build your business in India as far as railways is concerned. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jagan, for moderating this session in an excellent manner. And look forward, once everything opens up, it has, but when everything is like it was before, we look forward to a delegation from Canada for the railway companies, and we look forward to meeting all of you in person.
Sure.
Yeah.
All of us, take care.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Jagan. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you very much.